how to improve in our drawing. There are lots of videos on this. There's lots of things that could be said. There's lots of strategies that could be employed. But I want to keep it really simple. I want to give a really simple 2-question framework, which I think will set us up to improve in a way that goes far beyond what will happen if we don't think with these 2 simple questions, if we're not doing these 2 things. And it doesn't matter at what stage in our drawing journey are we. These are the 2 questions that I'm asking myself. These are the 2 questions that have propelled my own individual drawing experience and development into improvement over the last year, 2 years, in a way that I can see very clearly. Wherever we're at, these questions will take us further, and they will line up with where we're wanting to go. And that's because the first question is, how am I wanting to improve? What am I wanting to have change about my drawing? It's no good just saying, oh, I want to improve, I want to get better, I want my drawings to look better. That's actually no help at all in actually improving. We have to have some sense of how we want to improve, what's not the way it should be in what we draw, not what we might draw in the future, but what I'm drawing now. What about what I'm drawing now do I see as a weakness, as a problem, as not accurate, or simply not how I'm wanting my drawings to look? Stylistically, it's not making me happy. Simply doing more drawings, simply watching a lot more videos, simply reading how to draw books, simply leafing through the artworks of other people can easily not make any difference at all with my own drawing development. But what will make a difference is if I ask myself, what exactly am I wanting to have happen with my drawing in the next stage? And I can't work on everything at once. Now, that's not to say that several different things can't be improving at the same time, but I don't really have the capacity probably to concentrate deliberately with more than a few areas. So for instance, if I'm just starting out to draw and I'm struggling with proportions, say, when I freehand draw something, it's hard for me to get the height and the width relationship the same. So my objects might look a bit too wide or not quite tall enough or a bit too rounded or something. It may be that for the sort of subjects I want to draw, I find the shadows, the shade, too difficult to hatch. I'm not sure how to represent the darkness, such as say I like drawing scenes like this one behind me, but I might really struggle to put the shadows on the grass and have it look real. The more I can narrow down exactly what I'm unhappy about with the drawings I'm doing now, the better I can get a focus for how I want to draw later on. And I will illustrate what I'm saying with some of my own drawings and by letting you know some of the deliberate ways I've been trying to improve over the last couple of years with my drawings, and let you have a look and see whether this intention, whether this deliberate preoccupation with a certain number of things has helped my drawings to improve. Of course, it doesn't have to be proportions, it doesn't have to be shadows and shade. Perhaps I can't manage perspective very well and it makes my drawings look very unreal. Or perhaps I struggle with surface textures, things such as this grass behind me, or the bark on a tree, or leaves on a tree, bricks on a wall. Perhaps those areas really give me a lot of problems. Perhaps it's the edges of items. Whatever it is, the more focused I can be on the things I want to be particularly working on right now, then the more I'm going to both do the creative thinking I need to work through those areas in an improving way, or the better I'm going to be able to find resources that will help me do that, that will give me input that I need to do that. And the more I'm likely to choose subjects to draw, and this is an important one, that actually give me opportunity to practice changing my thinking, changing my technique. It's going to encourage me to experiment with these areas. If I'm not happy with my hatching, then it's going to encourage me not just to choose subjects that involve hatching, but not to do the hatching the same way every time. because I already know I'm not happy with how I'm doing it. So I have to experiment. I have to try different directions, different ways, different combinations, different use of the pen, whatever. This also lets me choose how to improve my hatching resources. I can watch hatching videos, I can look up the chapter on hatching in books and just focus on that, because relatively intense focus on a few areas is a much easier way to improve than trying to tackle a lot of different things all at once. But as we do that, we do need to make sure that we don't have too many things to tackle at once in our drawing, in what we choose to draw. If I'm a beginner, I need to make sure my context for doing this are drawings that I have a chance of doing well in some way. But equally, if I'm further along, if I'm at perhaps more an intermediate stage, you couldn't say I was a beginner, I don't pretend to be an artist, but I've come a long way, then I need to choose subjects that fit into that level, that challenge me at that level in the skills I'm trying to work on, hatching, proportions, whatever. So if we want to make sure we improve in our drawing, the first thing I need to do is to have quite specific areas that I'm focusing on. I'm not limited to those, but they certainly give me a target that I'm aiming towards in the next number of drawings I'm doing. But the second question that we need to ask ourselves is, at some stage in the future, when I've been working through certain topics with a focus deliberately, and I need to ask myself, have my drawings improved in these areas? And this can be confronting. It can even be something that I feel that I lack the experience to be able to answer. But if I don't have a class teacher, I need to do my best to ask this question and to answer it. And of course, the only way I answer it is by getting my drawings out and comparing them. And in a moment, I'll compare a few of my drawings a couple of years apart and talk about the focus that I've had in those in-between years. And we can see what difference that focus in my drawing, in what I chose to draw, how I chose to draw it, has meant. And what I find encouraging is that when we have a couple of areas we're working hard to improve in, we find that we've actually improved in these other ways that hadn't been a focus, but somehow the skills that we were working on and trying hard with and taking risks with, doing harder things in a measured way, as we felt we had some success in what we were doing, push on a bit further, not too far, always giving ourselves a chance of building on what's come before, just enough to have a chance to build a bit higher, looking good. And then we need to look back. We need to look back and say, has this happened? And I need to be honest with this. And quite frankly, even if in just one drawing we can see an improvement, that's great. But often we will notice improvement in a number of areas. And when we see this, we know we're on the right track. We know that the sorts of changes that we're trying to do, the sorts of goals we have, and the way we're doing it, the degree of difficulty we move from one period to the next with, the materials perhaps that we've been using. But equally, we may not have advanced as much as we would have liked, and then we don't go, oh, this is hopeless, why am I bothering? But rather, we say, okay, from what I can see here, what does this tell me? Because how my drawings look at this point helps me determine what I'm still hoping to improve on in the future, in my future drawings, and gives me a focus. But I know I need to change what I was doing before, because doing the same thing the same way will continue to give me the same results. So if I'm not happy with the results, I have to make changes. I have to experiment. And that can be really hard for some personalities, because we often end up at the start drawing in the way that feels comfortable, feels the best, and often that feels the safest, because we don't want to make a mistake or do things wrong. And so we draw possibly in a very timid way, and we get very set ways of thinking. This is how you draw a tree, this is how you draw a house, this is how you draw a pathway, and so on. And we kind of lock into this, and then we feel very insecure about not doing it that way. But if that way is not producing the results I want, then I have to push myself to experiment. But I only have to push myself to experiment until I start to find ways that are working. And then I'm not experimenting anymore. Then I'm actually using what I've discovered, and I'm now incorporating that into my ongoing drawing. And this is the way our drawings change over time. We never stop looking at our drawings and critiquing them from drawing to drawing. I do that. What worked? What didn't work? What was I careless about? Why was I careless about it? Was I tired? Was I not paying attention? Because whatever it was, I want to make sure I don't bring that into my next drawing. And are there any skills that I can see I would like to develop further to be able to create drawings that I'm not yet creating? And you can see how these two questions, how am I wanting to improve from where I'm at now? And looking back, have I improved from where I was then in the ways I was hoping to improve, working towards improving, can apply at whatever stage in the drawing journey we're in. In fact, I feel that my drawing is pushing ahead at a faster rate than it has in the past because I have this focus. And I'm partly pushing myself because I'm making YouTube videos. But in the end, that doesn't matter. It's going through the process, working hard at it and bringing your best to it every time you sit down to draw, to have a focus of what I'm trying to develop, what I'm trying to do better at, and then to be continually evaluating. But besides the fact that evaluating each drawing is very helpful, that mustn't mean we don't sit down every 6 months and do a serious stock take of where we've come in our drawing, of has our drawing developed in the way we want over the bigger picture. Am I generally at a better place now than I was? Am I generally now in my drawings at a place that pleases me more than I was with these issues 6 months ago, 12 months ago? So let me show you now a few of my drawings from a couple of years ago, and let me point out the ways in which I've been deliberately trying to develop my style, improving my drawings, and see the benefit that that focus has given me. Because I want you to understand this works wherever we're at, and I think its beauty is its simplicity. This was my first drawing of a tree where the tree was a single subject, exploring the hatching effect to create the sense of 3 dimensions of our tree. And this drawing was done in October 2021. It was actually 12 months later when I did another single tree video, and this was the result. So my tree has become a little more adventurous. I'm still getting a feel for using hatching to create both value, lights and darks, and also local color, the green. And then in April 2023, I had this massive line tangle, which I was happy enough about to make a video about. But to me now, looks like it's just too much of a mess. There's not enough clear differentiation between various parts so that it's really obvious what we're looking at. It could almost be an abstraction based on trees, I think. But my unhappiness with this helped me to focus more in trees since then. And this is January this year. So this is more like 6 months ago. Here's another one in January. I think a far happier choice of marks and form and value. And this is my latest solo tree with a little more exploration of lightness in the marks, trying not to be so heavy-handed with my mark making to create a little more nuance in the values. It's also a larger tree as well, so there was more detail to try and put in there. But when I look back and compare the first and last, I can see that the specific focus that I had on how I wanted to develop my tree drawing and improve on it, what qualities of the tree visually I was hoping to get more skilled at presenting, at creating, I feel like I have moved in that direction. As well as drawing individual trees, I became more interested in drawing the Australian bush, the thick tangle of trees and undergrowth. And this was one of my earliest attempts at that, drawn in October 2022. Pretty much a year later, which has some improvements, but has also a lot of things that don't quite work for me to look at now. But I had developed, with my boldness with hatching, I had developed my trying to create a sense of depth. And so I can certainly see advancement in the direction I was wanting to go. This one in October 2023 certainly popped things along for me. I felt like a lot of things came together with this scene. And maybe the fact that I was drawing it a bit smaller than my other ones helped me to consolidate more easily the techniques I was starting to feel more in my mind, let me apply them more quickly, more easily. And then in the next month, I drew this one. And again, now I'm starting to get a feel which isn't overwhelmed with a fairly flat tangle of lines, but where we start to see not just the bush in perhaps a little more identifiable form, but we get a nice sense of depth moving through, as well as variation of our values. And one of the most recent drawings I've done in this type of scene shows the difference between a couple of years of drawing relatively intensely, drawing similar subjects over and over again, and everyone having a focus as to what skills I want to push myself in a more intense way. So let's end now with a couple of architecture examples. These first three examples are all a couple of years old, but all of these drawings are freehand ink drawings of European neoclassical architecture. We have this portion of the Museum of Natural History in Vienna. We have this view of the Brandenburg Gate, and we have this, I think it's the prefecture building on the banks of the Seine, very close to Notre Dame. And all of them, I think, very similarly show a great emphasis on line, outline in fact, and accuracy of proportion and of perspective, but they don't have much feeling. I was wanting to develop my architectural drawings that looked a little less like architectural sketches and a little more like capturing the feel of the building. So here are two much more recent architecture drawings, and here's one of them. This is a neoclassical facade, a Georgian facade in Tasmania, in Hobart, that does combine trees and neoclassical architecture. And I think even though it's a very similar sort of building to the ones we're looking at here, I feel like there's a much calmer feel to the lines, the line work, the marks. That creates a nicer feel. But even for a complex building such as Palais Garnier, and even though there's a lot of lines and we're trying to capture the architecture accurately, I feel like my line work has softened and become more gestural, and over the whole drawing has become more varied in a way that creates far more interest and I think a stronger sense of realism than I was able to capture with these more precise architectural drawings. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. To me, these two questions, one that I ask before I draw, what am I trying to achieve, and one that I ask after I've done the drawing, have I achieved it, and also at longer periods looking back, have without doubt vastly accelerated my drawing development from where it was to the place that I'm wanting it to get to. And while I'm not there yet, and I know that we never do get to that place, but I have the satisfaction and the encouragement of seeing the process work and develop, and overall make drawing an increasingly satisfying thing to do. But look, whatever you draw, however you draw it, whether you want to ask these questions or not, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.